Welcome to EventUp, the place where people enthusiastic about events stay in the know on the latest trends within the events industry. Live, hybrid, and virtual experiences. From virtual events to conferences, award galas, and everything in between. Here's your host, Amanda Ma.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited to host today's episode. We have a super special guest joining us today, which is Sacha Tani Ching. She's the Director of Sales and Marketing at the iconic LA Memorial Coliseum. She's a seasoned event sales and marketing professional with over a decade of experience in hospitality industry. As the Director of Sales and Marketing at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, she drives revenue growth and positions the venue for high-profile events. Previously, she led major initiatives at the Universal Studios Hollywood and the LA Tourism and Convention Board, working with top clients like LinkedIn and RBC. And I've known Sacha for a while now, so it's such a treat to have her on our podcast today to kind of share her wisdom with the rest of the people here.
I'm super excited to be here.
I know, we're like, come on, we got to get you on our podcast. Let's bring you on. And we finally made it happen. So I'm excited she's here. Sacha, is there anything else that you want to add to your bio that maybe I didn't get a chance to share?
No, I mean, I've been involved in hospitality ever since I could remember, and I know this is the same story for a lot of hospitality professionals. Growing up either at the front desk or being a server, I've done all of that, and I think that truly is what creates that service-oriented individual, is really starting at that like front line position, being face to face with customers in that way. So I think that's a huge part of my DNA and growing within this industry. And another big part of that is going to Cal Poly Pomona at their hospitality school, Collins College of Hospitality Management. They have a master's program, which I have not taken advantage of yet, but I'm super involved in their alumni group. I was on the alumni board for several years until I stepped down recently, but still love going to their mixers and all of that. But hugely proud of the college and everything that they do there.
And I know we initially met when you were at Universal Studios Hollywood, and you were just one of those people. I think we met at MPI, right? I'm trying to remember where we met. And she's super hospitable and just like super nice. She's just a fantastic networker, as it'll probably shine through as we continue our conversation as well.
Yeah, I mean, some people say I ramble. I just have to fill that void. So I'm trying, a new skill I'm trying to learn is trying to be more concise.
Okay, that's a good one. I don't feel like you ramble, but now that you said that, I'm going to be listening for it.
I definitely try to fill the void. And if you know me or have seen me at a networking event, you can tell that I'm there by my loud laugh, is what most people say. They're like, oh, I didn't see you, but I knew you were there because I could hear your laugh from the other side of the room. So I'm also loud.
All right. We learned so many new things about her already. But okay, you've been in events for so long, and we often talk about this when we get together as well, right? Like the events that we have worked on just as an agency and also as a venue then. And we kind of share best practices. So out of all these years, do you have one where you're like, this is my proudest event?
You know, another fun fact about Sacha is I have very short-term memory. So I don't know if it's the best one that I've experienced in my entire career. But one that I can share of recent history that's fresh off of my mind is Nike recently had an amazing dinner to honor Joan Benoit for her 40th anniversary of winning the marathon at the 1984 Olympics. So they hosted that last year, and as Nike does, the concept from beginning to end and just how inspiring it is. And if you don't know about Joan Benoit and her story of how she ran the marathon, and that was the first time ever that women were allowed to run marathons. they literally, our bodies will crumple, and women cannot handle running a full marathon. So for her to prove them all wrong and not knowing what she would come to at the end of the finish line being here at the Coliseum, to open up around that corner from the tunnel and seeing a fully packed stadium, hearing them roar when she was coming down the finish line was so inspiring. And what that anniversary event, what was so impactful for me is how much emotion that it brought when I walked through the space. Is I think that's what really creates the best kinds of events, is when it makes you think differently and creates some sort of impact or emotion when you experience the event, right? So my favorite part of the event was in the tunnel. If you've ever been to the Coliseum tunnel, it's iconic, but it's also very dark and it curves. So you can't really see what's coming up as you're walking down. And what they did was projected parts of her run into the tunnel as this sort of red carpet experience as people are walking down. And those words, like, they said she couldn't, they said she wouldn't, that she shouldn't, and she did, right? But she did it. So at the end, you're like, wow, I can't believe, and seeing those live moments played right in front of you, and then walking through the tunnel, that the very same tunnel that she did. I think that's the key with events, right? Striking that emotion and having that great tie of what you're trying to represent and invoke that feeling into your attendees.
And they definitely picked super strategically when it came to a venue. So I had the pleasure, like, we done several events at the LA Coliseum. We absolutely love it just because it's such a statement piece. Like, honestly, like, if you pick the venue, you pick the right venue, because if you want to make a statement, this is where you do it. So even when you were sharing about the tunnel, right? So one of my questions that I love asking my guests is always, what went really well, what you love. And it seems like that really was very striking for you, that even for someone short-term memory, you still remember.
Well, because that's how impactful it was, right? So that's the goal for any event planner or event professional, is to create a memory.
And of course, you guys utilize your torch and your big screens and leverage that whole branding opportunity as well.
Yeah, and what I really love is that this dinner was only for about 70 people. So a lot of people imagine a football stadium and the Coliseum, like the name itself means huge, right? Colossal, but they had an intimate dinner for 70 people, and there's just something about being in such a vast, expansive space and being in a really intimate dinner. So having the beautiful architecture of our peristyle with the arches and the travertine, and then the lighting of the torch with they had 3D projection mapping on the arches. So it's all of those elements, and of course the Los Angeles beautiful night sky and perfect weather, all those just come together in that perfect moment, which everyone spent all their time into making that happen just right.
I love that. And then remind me, was the actual dinner, did that take place inside the tunnel, or was that on the concrete area on the field?
Yeah, so that actually happened on our field court. A lot of people are looking for that unique experience to be on field level. And what's unique about the Coliseum is we have this area called field court, which normally during football season is where we build our field suites on. But outside of football season, so from December to mid-August, that space is available, and we've hosted galas of up to 600, intimate dinners of 70, and other team building things without having to really damage our natural grass. So unlike some other stadiums, we do have natural grass, which makes it very sensitive to have tables or other things, and it's not very practical. So this is the way we are able to create that on-field experience without having to charge a resod fee, and having that flat concrete space for kitchen build-outs, restrooms. As much as people love to think about the glitz and glam, as an event professional, you know you need to have some restrooms.
Yes, totally. And I remember when we did our event, I mean, our event was a little bit more massive in the sense that it was for 2,000 to 3,000 people. So we kind of did take over the whole feel. But even then, it was such a phenomenal experience. I remember even when we're loading in the first day, when the vendor was on the grass, he was like, "Oh my gosh, you have no idea how many sports shows I watch here and to be able to be on the grass." And he was taking like a selfie because he wanted to remember that moment too.
And it's sort of like a fan moment, right? Like you get on field level and you can't help yourself. You do want that selfie moment. And for your event, for instance, the majority of the field was uncovered because obviously humans walking on it is less of a deal than having infrastructures being built on it. So there are ways to go around it, and we have this warning track, which is sort of a dirt path around the field as well. So which allows groups to build on that as well. Like NFLPA, which is the NFL Players Association, they always do their rookie photos and all of that here every year. Unfortunately, they're unable to do that this year due to our commencement, USC commencement this year, but it's always fun to see all the rookies come and enjoy and really take in a professional stadium.
That's awesome. So for the Nike event, I'm wondering, is there anything that you have done differently?
You know what? As corporate companies go, and we find this a lot post-COVID, and it's not just to that event specifically, but the lead time into the event is it gets tricky, right? So I think if I'm remembering correctly, we had about a month from like first inquiry to event date. So it's not a lot of lead time, and we found that a lot post-COVID. It seems like some groups are lengthening, but also a lot of corporate groups are deciding that, it makes them more agile to, plan last minute because they can see how much budget they really have. Venues are used to it, event professionals are used to it. So I feel like they're sort of taking advantage of it. It's good and bad because we can fill some last minute open spots in our calendar, but also it's bad in the way that sometimes we can't make it work. Your perfect venue doesn't have your day, or you can't work with the specific vendor that you want because of the date. So there's definitely pros and cons, but as event professionals, of course, the more lead time that we can get, we love that.
Yeah. And we talk extensively about the time frame, the turnaround time, right? It's
Yeah.
definitely getting shorter. And already we feel like we're magicians, but even more so nowadays. And we get it from the brand perspective as well, because they like what's trendy and the momentum. Like sometimes they got to do it right away. Right.
Yeah.
But yes, the little bit more lead time will always be appreciated. We always say, wait, this year?
When do you want this?
March this year?
I just had a call yesterday and I said, okay, when are you trying to finalize this by? And they said next week. And I was like, okay, cool.
With a smile, of course.
No problem.
Yeah.
You can do
How
it.
about in terms, because your venue is so unique, what are some key factors do you believe really contribute to the success of an event that's being hosted at your venue?
I think it's just being open-minded, right? And going back to COVID, is there were a lot of good things that came out of COVID. I think QR codes for one. QR codes were like dead, and then all of a sudden using QR codes everywhere. But another great thing about COVID that came with any challenge comes innovation, right? Speaking to the innovative group, right? But the innovation that came out of COVID is thinking outside the box, thinking outside of the ballroom, literally. And it really opened a lot of organizations' minds to having their workshop, their meeting, their conference not at a hotel. And I think that created an attendee experience that brought it up to the next level. So they had to do it outdoors for a certain period of time, especially here in LA, especially here in California. And then by hearing their attendees appreciating sort of the unique venues and the creativity that organizations put into certain meetings, now it's almost a mandatory, right? Like now they're like, what else is new? What else is different? And that's, I think, where the Coliseum comes in. Our most booked space is probably the presidential suite, and we do workshops, meetings, dinners, receptions, all kinds of events in that space. And it honestly wasn't made to do that, right? It does have all the modern amenities and luxuries, but that's not its main function. But it has actually become its main function because we only have about 8 home football games on a yearly basis. And the number of events that we have in that suite are definitely more than 8. So I think that's really the key here when planning at a unique space, is that being open-minded and knowing that it's going to pay off in the end, because the attendees are going to experience something that they've never seen before, and it's going to hold their attention and be more susceptible to registering because it's different, and paying attention, because when I'm in a ballroom, I want to sort of hold my phone, open a laptop, get some work done.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. So we love hotels, right? But as an agency, we're always looking for the newest and just like you said, a more unique venue as well to kind of push the envelope to create that's going to offer our brand's attendees that surprise and delight. And I still remember when we did the event at the LA Coliseum, like the attendees were experiencing, they were walking through the tunnel that you mentioned a little bit earlier. And as they're coming out, like ending the tunnel, we actually had the USC band that was kind of playing and welcoming them. And you could just see the people smiles like all of a sudden because they didn't know what to expect. Right. So
Yeah.
because the tunnel is kind of, it's definitely a few steps. So as you kind of embark, make your way down, so that was like really interesting. And then not to even mention once you get on the field and really utilizing, I think that's also really good. Like you guys were a really great partner in terms of how can we best leverage the venue so that we can not only have the branding that's necessary, but also enhance the experience because it is such an iconic experience as well.
From influencer events and corporate galas to summits, we create real moments of connection. Contact us to set up an impact call.
How about you've been doing this for a while?
Yeah.
Just a little while. What is your most rewarding part of your work in the event industry?
I think it's the relationships. Honestly, it's our relationship, it's the friendships that I've made. I've definitely made friendships that extend beyond the industry and into my personal life. And it's just a community. Events that you can plan for every single thing that you potentially think can go wrong, but there are things that we can't plan for. We can't plan for the fires. We can't plan for COVID. Like there's no crystal ball that'll tell us how to navigate certain things, right? But event professionals are tasked to make it happen, to figure it out. We're problem solvers, and essentially we're going through very traumatic sort of experiences together, and you come out as lifelong friends. So those experiences are really what bond you to your colleagues. And that's what I love about the industry, is we're all here for each other. And people are always shocked when I'm talking to a competitor or like, friends with other things or whatever, but it's really not that way in our industry. We're all about sharing ideas, best practices. During COVID, we actually had like, I can't remember if it was a weekly or monthly call with other stadiums and arenas to see what they're doing. Everything was changing so quickly that we couldn't keep up with the protocols of the distancing, of what the venue needed to provide versus, to keep everyone safe. So, our colleagues in the industry, our counterparts, and I have colleagues at SoFi and Rose Bowl and all the venues all over. I call often to be like, hey, what are you doing about this? And they call me about questions as well. And I'm always happy to share, because one day we're competitors and one day we're colleagues. As I know from my time at Universal Studios, they're my greatest allies, and we even call each other strategic partners as we invite each other to our hosted client events. A client that's booking Universal Studios, they're probably not gonna they're having a different event here at the Coliseum, so it's gonna be one or the other. It's not really a true competitor, and if I want to lose business, I definitely want to give it to a friend.
That's so great. That's totally the type of person you are. I love that. So then if you were to start over and you could pick your career again, would it still be in this industry?
If I were to start over, I'd marry rich and be on an island somewhere
Oh
away
my.
from it all. But yes, absolutely. If I were to start over and choose a career, I definitely would stay in the events industry. It's just different every day, right? Like you get to see the newest and coolest things. And although it is so much hard work and being in the industry, we all know how much time that we put into making these magical moments happen. For someone outside of the industry looking in, they're probably just thinking, wow, all they get to do is party all the time, go to fun things and travel. And yeah, it sounds cool, but there's definitely blood, sweat, and tears that go into that.
Yeah, we always say behind every successful event, it requires so many different talent behind the scenes to make it happen. But a lot of time people just don't see those behind the scenes.
Yeah, one phrase that I can say that probably encapsulates our industry is work hard, play hard.
All right. This is why we get along.
Yeah.
How about in terms of like resources and tools? Like, do you have any recommendation for our audience that's tuning in for them to stay updated and enhance their skill in the field?
To be honest, industry specific, obviously you see me at networking events all the time, and I love hearing those industry specific sort of master topics. But what I do for myself to improve my work and what I do on a daily basis is just general like efficiency is, I read Smart Brevity and I'm like, okay, bullet points, 5 sentence emails, just trying to learn these things about getting 80% of the output with 20% of the work, or just I don't think we take enough time to learn about how we are as leaders or how we work as an individual and trying to improve on upon that. And one of my favorite things is Atomic Habits, which I'm sure everyone's already heard of, but what sticks with me is always the 1%. Is it seems overwhelming to change your whole lifestyle or the way you work or the way you speak, but just the concept of improving yourself 1% every day, it seems totally manageable. And I just take that into account. It's like, okay, I don't have to change everything, but I'm just going to do this one little thing, one little change every day. And then once that becomes a habit, then you're adding another 1% thing. And then all of a sudden, a year later, you're a whole different person, improving on things that bother you or things that need work on. So, to me, it's just like kind of general improvement instead of industry specific.
I love that. So what version of Sasha are you on? Are you Sasha 4.0, 10.0?
This week
Right.
I'm Manic Sasha. All of that's gone out the window. I had a couple cookies today.
Yeah. No, but I love that because it's all about like, you make progress little by little, but like you said, when you look back, you made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
But it doesn't
And if
always
you
have to be
haven't,
from 1 to 100, right?
yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't read the book, Atomic Habits, it's so good. Basically, this trainer came in and the English team had never won the Tour de France in like I don't know 100 years, and then all of a sudden they're making these 1% changes to the team, and that being like changing your pillow so you have a good night's rest. They brought in a surgeon to show the team how to wash their hands so that they don't get sick as much, so they have less downtime so that they can train more. So these little things, just simple things like washing your hands properly so you don't get sick as much, compounded. And within 5 years, this team was winning the Tour de France for the next like decade.
It's definitely a fantastic book. Highly recommend it as well. I'll second that. How about, okay, I love this one. Are there any myths about the event industry or venue management that you would like to debunk?
Is that we actually know what we're doing. I'm just kidding. We actually do. Myths I want to debunk is it's hard, right? Because everything's so different, but also so similar. The major myth I want to debunk is that we're having fun all the time, because it's definitely not. It's we're taking that Instagram video just to show the space or show that like, but you're really only able to enjoy enjoy the fruits of your labor for 5 seconds until you're pulled away. You're definitely the last one to eat if you even get anything to eat at all. I know many of events that you're running around and you don't get anything to eat, which is why like I always keep snacks at my desk, but sure, you're Instagramming it and, because you want to feel some sort of gratification that you've accomplished something. But the myth is that we're just hanging out and enjoying ourselves and laughing and drinking. But I'm not gonna lie, we do get to experience some really cool things. So it's a myth in a way, but not fully, because I do think that us as event professionals do get to see and experience the newest and coolest things out there.
Right. Just like the cool photos, but nobody saw when we had to show up, or the team has to show up at 4 a.m. or they've been there for the last 3 days setting up.
Yeah.
Actually, in fact, the most recent time we did an event at your venue, we were striking. I think it was like an hour into striking, and then we had hail. Literally, the strike had to stop, and all the vendor like ran in to get coverage, and literally it was hail. And on top of that, one of the pipe burst in the green room. So talk about craziness,
Yeah.
right? But like these kind of things happen. Literally, I was there with the teams. And then I was taking a video of like the hail that's happening at the Coliseum. It looked beautiful, by the way. So I sent it to the client, and the client's like, "Where are you?" I was like, "Where you were at an hour ago." She's like, "No way, that's at the Coliseum." I'm like, "Yeah, this is what's happening right now," but it was like sunshine literally an hour before. Right. But there's so much hard work. I just want to, if you ever see any events people out there, please give them the kudos. Like I always thank the venue people when I go venue, because I know not just like only they work hard, but I think so many behind the scenes people, they don't get that appreciation. So please help us just like extend the gratitude. I think that would mean so much to them.
Yeah, agreed. And I definitely take that. I actually say my colleagues, like my operations team, my events team, our facilities folks, our grounds crew, I call them my number one client, because without them, I can't make all these other events work. They're my number one client, and I have to keep all of them happy, number one, so that they can make sure that all of this happens and goes. So the appreciation that you show your team returns in 100-fold. So that's always what I tell people when I'm mentoring students, especially, is like, if you work at a hotel, like I was getting to know the housekeepers and the bellmen and all of that, because you know what? They were like, this is a room for Sasha. She needs it cleaned right now because she has an angry guest at the desk. Like, I'm going to do it for her. So make friends with everybody.
That's such a great tip. And as we wrap up, that's a perfect segue, because I know you do a lot of mentoring for young professional. Any other additional advice you want to share with the audience?
I think experience everything. It's so hard. I think, especially at the college level, a lot of students just say, like, how did you know? Or, like, how do I figure out what I want to do? And I always tell the story that I wanted to be a wedding planner. And to think of that now, I'm like, oh, I would die. Like, mad respect to wedding planners, because that is a lot of work. It's a lot of emotions. It's a lot of hours. And at the time when I was growing up, it was, where all the wedding shows were on TV and it looked so fun and all of that. But I just essentially asked to intern with every single wedding planner I knew. I went to a networking event and it just like worked every single weekend. And I said, actually, this isn't for me. And then I tried restaurants and hotels and all kinds of things. You might have an idea of what you see for yourself in the future, but I think you truly don't know or understand it until you try it. And being in my current role right now, like I've always been like private corporate groups, and being at the Coliseum, my world has sort of been open to public and ticketed events and sporting events and things like that. And I'm like, oh, wait, this is different, new also. And that's something I'm exploring now and I'm just learning. So there's always new avenues to learn. And have conversations with people. You don't have to actually do the job to understand it. You can have informational interviews and shadow people. I think that's always a good way on LinkedIn. I know people are always like, I can't just send a random LinkedIn. And I'm like, ask for an informational interview or to come visit them or shadow them for a day. I think people are always willing to share their knowledge. I don't think we do enough of that today.
Such great advice. Oh my gosh. Well, I can't believe our time's up. So thank you so much. It's been such a fantastic conversation with you. I knew this was going to be really fun since, you and I talk all the time. So thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, pleasure learning more about the incredible work that you're doing at the LA Coliseum and beyond, and even just like your leadership among so many different organizations. So thank you again for your time.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It was my first podcast, so I hope I did all right. And I'm looking forward to a boba date soon.
Yes, that's definitely do that.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time on EventUp.